Wow. Okay, get this. India just performed heart surgery
Oh, wow.
remotely
Really?
with a robot
Wow.
over 286 kilometers.
Yeah.
Isn't that just incredible? It's like something straight out of Star Trek.
Yeah, that's really something. It's a huge development, and for our listeners who are preparing for the UPSC exams, well, this is something you need to know about. Robotic surgery, what it means. That's likely to show up on your mains exam, especially in areas like science and technology and social development.
Oh, for sure. It
Yeah,
could even be one of those tricky questions they throw at you in prelims.
definitely.
Okay, so at the heart of this medical marvel is, well, it's called the SSI mantra,
Yes.
and it's completely made in India.
That's right, the SSI mantra. It's a
Right.
game changer. It's the very first surgical robotic system developed right here in India, and it's been officially approved for telesurgery. That's by the Central Drug Standard Control Organization.
Okay, so that means it meets the highest safety standards.
Exactly.
So I'm not a tech whiz. Could you explain how this mantra thing works?
Sure, so imagine like a really, really advanced remote control setup. The surgeon sits at a console, right? That's the master. And they control these robotic arms. Those are the slave, and those are located near the patient.
Okay.
These robotic arms, they're incredible. They can mimic the surgeon's hand movements with amazing precision, and then those movements are transmitted across huge distances, like, hundreds of kilometers with almost no delay.
That is wild. So before we go any further with SSI mantra, I think it might be good for our listeners to take a step back and talk about robotics in general.
Of course, yeah. So basically, a robot is a machine designed to perform tasks automatically. They follow a set of instructions, a program, and they can do all sorts of things, from welding parts in a factory to, well, what we're talking about, assisting with complex surgeries.
So when we say robots, are we talking about like Sophia, that robot that can hold conversations,
Right.
or like AIBO, that robot dog?
Those are definitely robots. But there's a whole world of robotic systems out there. What they all have in common is that they can do things with almost no human intervention. And about, those sci-fi movies where robots take over the world, well, don't worry.
Okay, great.
We're not there yet.
That's a relief. Jokes aside, it's amazing how robots are, well, they're not just science fiction anymore. They're everywhere.
Exactly. And we're seeing them used in more and more ways, especially in India. Like in healthcare, we see robots being used for, well, everything from prosthetics to, of course, robotic surgery, like what we've been talking about with SSI mantra. This technology is really driving minimally invasive procedures. And that means shorter recovery times for patients and fewer complications.
So where else is India using robots?
Well, in defense, we have Daksha. That's a robot specifically designed for handling explosives, so that keeps our soldiers safe.
Oh, wow.
And in space, ISRO, they've developed Vyomitra. That's a humanoid robot that'll be part of future space missions.
So it seems like India's making a lot of progress with robotics.
We are. But there are some challenges. For example, while India ranks 7th globally in robot installations, that's according to the World Robotics Report 2024, we're still behind countries like China, Japan, and South Korea. As you get ready for your UPSC exams, it's important to understand not just the technology itself,
Right.
but how this all fits in with India's overall development, economically, socially.
That's a good point. It's bigger than just robots in the operating room.
Exactly. So think about things like the Make in India program. That's all about boosting domestic manufacturing,
Yeah.
and technological innovation. And robots are key to all that.
Okay, so what are some of the specific steps the government's taking to help the robotics field grow in India? I bet a UPSC aspirant will want to know that.
Well, there's the draft national strategy on robotics that proposes setting up a robotics innovation unit, and that would really encourage research and development.
Okay.
Oh, and the National Health Policy from 2017 that specifically mentions needing robots and digital health solutions.
So at the policy level, it sounds like they get it. The potential of robotics, I mean.
They do, and different states are also stepping up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Telangana. They've got a dedicated robotics framework to try to get more industry involvement.
That's great. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, the cost of all this is still a problem, especially when we're trying to make this technology available to everyone.
For sure.
So what can we do about the cost?
Well, one thing we could try is leasing models for these robotic systems.
Okay.
That would spread the cost out over time, make it more manageable for hospitals. And we could also try to encourage joint ventures, between the public and private sectors to develop and build robots that are more affordable.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the need for more people who know how to use all this stuff? How can India make sure there are enough surgeons and technicians who are trained to operate and, maintain these robotic systems.
Yeah. We need to invest strategically in training and education. Medical schools could include robotics training right from the start, so new surgeons are ready to use this technology.
Yeah, preparing them for the future of surgery.
Exactly. And we can actually use technology for the training too. Online platforms, virtual reality simulations,
Wow.
even telementoring, where experienced surgeons can guide others remotely.
So India could really become a leader in robotics, right, with all this?
Definitely. We've got what it takes. But to really get there, we need to tackle some big challenges. One of them is the need for a strong regulatory framework that's standardized for robotic surgery.
Okay, what would that look like?
Well, it would have to set clear rules for which surgeries are right for robotic assistance, so we make sure patients are safe,
Yeah.
and that we don't overuse the technology.
Yeah, that's important. What else?
It would lay out standard procedures for training and credentialing for the surgeons who do these robotic
Yeah.
surgeries. That way we can maintain a consistent level of quality and expertise across India.
Yeah, so everyone operating these systems has the right skills.
Exactly. And a solid framework would also cover things like data privacy and cybersecurity. Those are really important when you're dealing with medical technologies that collect and transmit sensitive patient information.
I see. So as technology changes, the rules need to change too.
For sure. And for someone studying for the UPSC, understanding these rules, this regulatory side of robotics is really important. It's not just knowing how the technology works. You have to be able to think critically about the policy implications too, and be able to clearly explain your opinions on how this technology should be managed and how it fits into society.
Okay, so speaking of broader societal implications, let's talk about how robotics is changing industries beyond healthcare.
That's a fascinating area. Robotics is really revolutionizing a lot of sectors, like manufacturing, for example. Robots have been used on assembly lines forever, but now they're even more advanced.
Okay.
Now they can handle complex tasks, things that require a lot of precision.
So it's not just about replacing human workers with machines.
Right, it's not just about that.
Right.
In many industries, the future is going to be about collaboration. Humans and robots working together.
Okay.
Because they each have unique strengths. Humans are creative. They're great at problem solving. They have emotional intelligence. But robots are fast. They're accurate. And they never get tired of doing repetitive tasks.
So we get the best of both worlds.
Right. And this idea of human-robot collaboration, it's happening in agriculture too. Robots are being used for things like planting and harvesting, even monitoring crop health, so farmers can be more efficient.
It sounds like robots are becoming really valuable partners in healthcare,
Yeah.
in manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
in agriculture. But as we use robots more and more, it's natural to worry about what it all means for society.
Of course.
Like, what about jobs? Are robots going to take everyone's jobs?
We have to look at this carefully. I mean, some jobs will probably be automated, that's true. But if you look at history, whenever we've had big technological advances, it's also created new opportunities, new industries. The key is to adapt, and for the workforce to learn new skills to meet those new demands.
So we embrace the potential of robotics,
Yes.
but we also make sure people are ready for the changes that come with it.
Exactly. And that's where education and training are so important. If we give people the skills they need to work with robots and in those new tech fields, we can minimize the negative impacts and make sure everyone benefits from the advances in robotics.
This has been a really interesting conversation, and especially relevant for someone preparing for the UPSC, because it's not just about the technology. It's about the impact on society, the economy, and what it means for the future of work.
I agree. And as you study, think about those bigger implications, analyze different perspectives, and really form your own opinions about how India can navigate the challenges and opportunities of this really transformative technology.
You've given us a lot to think about. Before we finish up, though, I want to talk about one more important aspect,
Oh, okay.
the ethical side of robotics.
Yes, that's a crucial topic. We need to think carefully about that. As robots become more a part of our lives, we need to address the ethical concerns to make sure this technology is used responsibly and that it benefits humanity.
Okay, let's dig into those ethical considerations when we come back for the final part of our deep dive into robotics in India. Stay with us. We're back and ready to tackle those ethical questions surrounding robotics. Especially for those of you preparing for the UPSC exams, this is important stuff. As we've been saying, robotics isn't just some far-off idea anymore. It's here. It's changing our lives in big ways.
Yeah, and like with any really powerful technology, we have to be careful. We need to make sure it's used ethically, make sure it benefits all of society. And this is especially important for a country like India that's really working towards inclusive and sustainable development.
So when we talk about ethics in robots, what are we really asking?
One of the biggest worries is algorithmic bias. You see, as we depend more on algorithms and artificial intelligence to run our robots, we need to be very aware of the potential for bias in these systems, especially in sensitive areas like healthcare, law enforcement, even hiring.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a problem. Like if a robot is making decisions based on biased information, well, that's not fair.
Exactly. Those biases can have real-world consequences. You could end up with unfair or discriminatory outcomes for certain groups.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine a medical diagnosis algorithm, the kind that helps doctors make diagnoses. If that algorithm is trained on data that's mostly from one specific demographic, well, it might not be as accurate for patients from other groups.
Oh, I see.
And that can mean differences in healthcare, like who gets access to the best treatments and what the outcomes are for different groups.
So it's about more than just the robot itself. It's the data behind it.
Yes, exactly. And that data can reflect, the biases that already exist in society. Another thing to think about is data privacy. These robots are collecting huge amounts of information, so we have to make sure that information is handled responsibly, that people's privacy is protected. This is really important in healthcare, where robots might be handling sensitive medical records.
So we need rules and regulations to control how robots collect, store, and use data.
Absolutely. And if you're studying for the UPSC, you really need to understand these ethical and regulatory aspects of robotics. You might get essay questions, or you might be asked about this in your interview. They might ask you to analyze how robotics impacts society, weigh the pros and cons. Think about solutions to ensure responsible development and use of the technology.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider when we talk about ethics in robots.
It's complex, no easy answers. But as robots get more sophisticated and more integrated into our lives, this is a conversation we need to have. As a society, we have to talk openly and honestly about the potential impact, the good and the bad, and work together to establish ethical frameworks that guide how we develop and use this powerful technology.
It's not just the engineers and scientists who build these robots. Everyone needs to be involved.
Right. It's policymakers, it's ethicists, it's ordinary citizens. We all need to be part of the conversation about shaping the future of robotics.
Okay, so for India, why is this conversation so important?
Well, India has a huge population,
Yeah.
and it's very diverse. We have to make sure that everyone benefits from robotics, that nobody is left out.
That's a good point. So as we wrap up this deep dive into robotics in India, what are the key things you want our listeners to take away, especially those who are preparing for the UPSC exams?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Robotics isn't just a technological advancement, it's changing society as a whole. This is a force that will shape our future in profound ways, from healthcare to manufacturing to agriculture and so much more.
It's not enough to just know the technical stuff.
Right. If you're a UPSC aspirant, you need to understand the bigger picture, the ethical considerations, the policy challenges, and how all this will impact India's social and economic development.
I think you've really given us a lot to think about.
Robotics is a complex topic, and it touches on so many themes that are relevant to the UPSC syllabus. By really getting a handle on this field, you'll be better prepared for anything. Analyze current events, formulate your own opinions, and contribute meaningfully to shaping India's future in this new era of technology.
Well, I hope our deep dive has given you a good overview of robotics in India. We've talked about the amazing possibilities and some of the challenges that come with this technology.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about robotics, the better prepared you'll be.
And if you learned something new from this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the deep dive. We'll explore more about science and technology and everything in between.
Oh, and be sure to give us a like. Share it with your friends who are also studying for the UPSC. And if you want to read more about this, check out The Hindu. They've got in-depth coverage and analysis of robotics and all the other cool technologies that are shaping India's future.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.